The sun burned hot over the dusty market. The planet was dry, filled with noise, smoke, and shouting. Traders yelled. People walked past quickly, holding bags of food, clothes, metal parts. But in one corner of the market, a woman knelt on the ground, an alien woman. Her skin was pale blue. Her hair was silver and messy. Her clothes were torn. In her shaking arms, she held a small boy. Her son. His eyes were closed, lips dry, breathing weak. She looked up with tired eyes and begged, "Please, someone help my child. Take my life. Just feed him." People looked at her, then turned away. "She's one of them," someone said. "Disgusting," another whispered. "She should go back to her own world." No one stopped. No one cared. The woman, named Jari, felt her heart breaking. She had escaped slavery with her son. She walked for days without food, without sleep. She had nothing left, only her child. Now he was dying. Jari pulled a small metal chain from her wrist and held it up. "This is all I have. Take it, please. Just give my boy something to eat." The crowd just walked faster. A group of humans nearby laughed. "She's acting like we owe her something," one of them said. Another pointed. "Her kind were enemies in the war. Now she begs like a dog." Jari didn't hear them. She was too weak, too lost in fear. Her boy's body was so cold now. Her arms were shaking. She looked up again. "Please," she said softly, "take me instead. Kill me, eat me. Just don't let him die hungry." And then, someone stopped. A pair of boots stood still in front of her. The man wearing them was quiet, strong, tall. His eyes were hidden behind old black goggles. A dusty brown coat covered his body, and a heavy bag hung over his shoulder. Jari lifted her head slowly. The man didn't speak. He just looked at her and then at the boy in her arms. Everyone else kept walking, but this man crouched down without a word. He opened his bag and took out a small food pack. He broke the seal and held it out to her. Jari froze. Her hands didn't move. "Feed him," the man said. His voice was low, calm, and human. Jari blinked. "Why, what do you want?" The man didn't answer. He opened a bottle and gave her clean water too. Jari hesitated, then took the food with shaking fingers. She opened the pack and carefully touched a piece to her son's lips. The boy didn't wake, but his mouth moved. Slowly, he swallowed. Tears ran down Jari's cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll repay you somehow. I will work. I will clean. I will." The man cut her off. "You need strength, too." He gave her a second pack. She looked at him, confused. No one had ever treated her like this, not even when she was free. Not when she was young, not since the war. She took a bite. Her eyes widened. It was warm, real food. Her stomach screamed. He gave her more water. Jari looked around. Now people were watching. Some looked angry, a few looked scared. One guard stepped forward. "Sir," the guard said, "we don't help her kind here. This isn't allowed. You're feeding a war criminal." The man stood up slowly. "She's a mother," he said coldly. "And that's a child. That's not a human child." The man turned to face the guard. "He's still hungry. That's all I see." The guard hesitated. "Name?" "Dane." "What?" "Just Dane." Jari blinked. That name sounded familiar. There were whispers of a man named Dane who once protected alien children during the border wars. A soldier who disobeyed orders. A man who disappeared afterward. The guard stepped back. "You should move along." Dane looked down at Jari. She was trying to stand, failing. He bent down, picked up the boy gently, then helped Jari to her feet. "You can't carry both," she said weakly. "I can." She looked at him with wide eyes. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Dane didn't answer. He simply said, "You need rest." "I have a place. Come." Jari hesitated. She had trusted before and been punished, but her son, he was breathing better. And this man hadn't asked for anything. She nodded Dot, and together they walked out of the market, past the crowd, past the guards, past the hate. The sun was still hot. But something had changed. For the first time in years, Jari felt a little hope. Jari woke up gasping. The room was too quiet, too soft, too strange. She wasn't lying in the market dirt anymore. She was on a soft bed, covered with a blanket. That smelled like soap and smoke. The light was low, the air clean. Her heart pounded. Her son. She sat up fast, her body aching. Her arms were empty. Nico? Her voice cracked as she stood. Her knees almost gave out, but she forced herself to move. Panic rushed in, the last thing she remembered. The man Dane offering help. She had followed him. Then her legs gave up. Had he taken her child? She stepped into the next room. Her breath caught. There, in a quiet corner, sat Dane. And in his arms, sleeping peacefully, was her son Nico. Jari covered her mouth. She wanted to scream, to cry, to fall. But she stayed still and watched. Dane was feeding the boy something soft from a warm cup, slowly and carefully. His hands were large and rough, but his touch was gentle. "You're awake," Dane said, without turning. Jari stepped closer. "Where are we?" "My home," he said. "Why?" He looked at her now. "Because the market wasn't safe." Jari looked around. The walls were made of old ship panels. There were boxes, tools, and strange machines, but it felt safe, warm, lived in. She walked to Nico and knelt beside him. She touched his cheek. It was no longer cold. "He's breathing better," she whispered. "He's strong. He just needed food and rest." Jari stared at Dane. "You brought us here, fed us, and didn't leave us outside to die." "I don't understand," Dane shrugged. "Not much to understand." "No one helps my kind," she said quietly. "Not unless they want something." Dane stood. He handed her a folded blanket. "You need more rest." She didn't take it. Her eyes stayed on him. "Are you alone here?" "Yes." "You're not afraid someone will see you with us, turn you in?" Dane gave a tired smile. "They already tried once." Jari tilted her head. "And?" "I told them to get lost." She looked down. Her fingers touched the floor. "You know who I am, don't you?" "You're a mother," Dane said. "That's enough." Jari closed her eyes. No one had called her that in years. Not like it mattered. Not like it was something beautiful. But here, it did. Later that night, a soft alarm beeped. Dane moved fast, grabbing a scanner from the table. Jari stood too. Her fear returned. "Who is it?" "Scouts," Dane said. "Border drones." Jari's body froze. "They scan for refugees. Escaped slaves, fugitives." Dane moved to a panel in the floor and opened it. "Get in." "What?" "It's shielded. They won't detect you or the boy." Jari hesitated. "I won't close it," Dane said. "You can keep the door open. I'll stand right here." She looked into his eyes. For a long time she said nothing. Then, holding Nico close, she climbed down. The panel closed partway. From below, Jari watched him stand guard, back straight, ready. The sound of drones hummed outside. Red lights flashed through the cracks in the metal walls. Jari held her breath, but nothing happened. After 10 minutes, the sound faded. Dane opened the panel. "You're safe." Jari climbed out, holding Nico tight. "Why did you hide us?" she asked. "You could be punished." Dane sat down. "I've done worse." That answer sent a chill down her spine. She didn't speak. Again that night. The next morning, Jari stepped outside for the first time. The cabin was hidden in the hills, far from the market. Tall metal trees, old communication towers, stood like bones around it. The wind was cold, but clean. Dane was outside, fixing a solar panel. "You should rest." he said without turning. I've rested enough, Jari replied. Can I help? He looked at her, surprised. I may be a burden, she said, but I am not lazy. You're not a burden. You don't even know me. Maybe not, Dane said, handing her a tool, but I know kindness should not be rare. Jari took it. That's not how the world works. It should be. They worked in silence. And for the first time in years, Jari didn't feel hunted, or hated, or weak. She felt human. Jari stood in front of the mirror. She hadn't looked at herself in weeks, maybe months. The reflection was not kind. Thin arms, hollow cheeks, eyes full of fear. But what made her look away were the scars, thick, ugly lines wrapped around her wrists and neck, burn marks from her slave collar. She touched them gently. Her fingers shook. She covered them quickly with a scarf. Behind her, the cabin was quiet. Dane had gone into town for supplies. Nico was napping in the back room. Jari stepped outside into the cold wind. She wrapped her scarf tighter and walked toward the tall metal towers nearby. Old machines, dead antennas. Dane said they didn't work anymore, but she didn't come for tech. She needed air, space, a moment to think. But as she sat near the base of the tallest tower, a memory returned. Chains. Screaming. Fire. She blinked hard, trying to chase it away. She failed. Hours later, Dane returned. He carried a pack full of food and tools. His boots were dusty. He looked tired. I brought some medicine too, he said as he placed the items on the table. Jari didn't answer. Her eyes were staring at one thing in his pack, a small worn metal symbol, round, faded, rusted. Her body stiffened. Where did you get that? She asked. Dane looked down. That? Just a trader gave it to me for cheap. Said it was from some old slave camp. Jari's voice cracked. That's not just some camp. That's where they kept me. Dane looked up, shocked. She stepped forward. That symbol was on the gates, and on the guards' uniforms. I can never forget it. Dane's hands tightened. You were in that place? For years. Her voice was calm, but her hands clenched into fists. They took me from my planet, from my parents. Said my kind had to pay for the war. I was only 15. Dane sat down. Do you want to talk about it? No, she said quickly. But then she sat down across from him. Every night, she began slowly, they would call our names like animals. If you moved too slow, they punished you. If you spoke out, they sold your child. Dane was silent. They sold my first child, she whispered. A baby girl. I never saw her again. She paused, her eyes full of pain. And when I ran years later, I took Nico with me. I would rather die in the sand than lose him too. Dane swallowed hard. You shouldn't have had to choose that, he said. Zari gave a bitter laugh. I didn't have a choice. The next day, Dane and Jari went into town together for the first time. They kept their heads low. The colony market was full of noise and people again. Humans, hybrids, and a few aliens from other sectors. Jari held Nico's hand tightly. They moved fast through the stalls. But then Jari stopped cold. Across the street, near a dark tent, stood a man, fat, tall, wearing a wide coat and a red scarf. Her breath froze in her throat. That scarf, that face. He had once held the leash around her neck. She had seen him laugh when her sister was whipped. Her hand grabbed Dane's arm, shaking. That man, he used to own me. Dane followed her eyes. You're sure? Positive. Dane didn't blink. Stay here. No, wait, but... He was already walking toward the man. Jari's heart raced. This wasn't part of any plan. She picked up Nico and followed. Dane reached the tent and stood in front of the slaver. The man looked confused. Do I know you? He asked. No, Dane said. But I know what you are. The slaver laughed. Oh, what's that, stranger? A stain. Jari arrived just in time to hear it. The slaver's face twisted. Watch your mouth, Dane stepped closer. Or what? Guards began to notice. One came toward them. Jari panicked. Please, let's go. Dane looked back at her. Her eyes said it all, not here, not now. He turned back to the slaver and smiled coldly. Be seeing you, Dane said. He walked away. Jari followed, still shaking. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. I know. They'll remember your face. They already do. That night, Dane handed her something. A small shock device, self-defense. Non-lethal. She looked at it, confused. I don't want you to ever feel powerless again, Dane said. Jari didn't know what to say. So she simply nodded. And for the first time, she smiled, a small one, but real. The rain fell hard that night. Jari stood under the metal roof outside the cabin, watching the drops fall through the rusted holes. The cold wind touched her skin, but she didn't move. She wasn't thinking about the slaver anymore. She was thinking about Dane. Something about him felt unfinished, as if a part of him had been broken long before she met him. He never smiled with his eyes. He never laughed, not even once. He helped her. He saved Nico, but he never talked about himself. Inside, she found him in the back room. Dane was sitting shirtless on a small stool, cleaning a deep scar across his shoulder. It looked recent, red, and angry. Jari's breath caught. That scar wasn't alone. His back was full of them. Not just one, not two, dozens, long cuts, burn marks, circular wounds. Some old, some new. Jari stepped closer, quietly. Who hurt you, human? She asked softly. Dane didn't turn. No one now. She moved to his side and sat down slowly. The silence stretched between them. Tell me, she said, her voice low. Please. For a moment, she thought he would refuse again. But then he spoke. I was a soldier, Dane began, in the border wars. I followed orders for a while. Jari listened, eyes fixed on his face. One day, we were ordered to clear out a refugee camp. They said it was a threat, that aliens inside were hiding weapons. His voice changed, quieter, shaky, but there were no weapons. Just families, children, starving, sick. Jari's heart beat faster. I didn't follow that order, Dane said. I stopped the others, hit a few, fought my own squad to protect them. You saved aliens? She whispered. He nodded. Some of your kind, some others too. I tried. What happened after? They branded me a traitor, stripped my rank, beat me, left me to die in the ashlands. Jari looked at the scars again. Now she knew what they were. Not battle wounds. Punishments. Double quotes. They said I betrayed my species, Dane said. But I couldn't watch children burn and call it duty. Jari blinked fast. You did more than most ever would. Dane finally looked at her. His eyes weren't cold this time. Just tired. Why are you still helping people like me? She asked. He shrugged. Because no one helped me. Later that night, Nico woke from a nightmare. He ran into the room, crying. Jari picked him up and held him close. But the boy reached for Dane. Jari froze. Dane didn't move for a moment. Then slowly, he took Nico into his arms. Jari watched as her son laid his head on Dane's chest, small hands holding his shirt tightly. Do you want me to say something? Dane asked. She shook her head. No, she whispered. He feels safe. That's enough. The next morning, the cabin was quiet. Jari was outside boiling water. Nico played with scrap parts Dane had given him. The boy laughed for the first time in weeks. Dane was checking the perimeter motion sensors, cameras, and wires buried in the sand. Jari smiled as she watched him return, but her smile disappeared when she saw his face. Something was wrong. What is it? She asked quickly. Dane didn't answer. He moved to the control panel, tapped a few buttons, and pulled up the footage. Jari looked over his shoulder. In the blurry recording, A figure moved through the night outside the fence. Slow. Careful, watching. Someone was here? She asked, heart racing. Dane nodded. Not just someone. A scout, possibly a slaver. Jari felt her knees weaken. They found us. Dane's jaw tightened. They won't take you, I promise. She looked into his eyes. You can't. Promise that. I can try. He pulled a drawer open and handed her a small device, a distress signal beacon. If things go wrong, take Nico and press this. It'll send a location to a safe contact of mine. Jari stared at the device. What about you? Dane didn't answer. That night, Jari couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, holding Nico close. She thought about Dane's scars. His silence, his quiet strength. And how, even with all he had lost, he still chose to protect others. Slowly she sat up, walked to the main room, and found him sitting in the dark. She sat beside him. I was wrong about you, she said. You weren't wrong. I thought you were just kind. But now I see, you're also carrying a storm. Dane didn't speak. She looked at him. If they come for me again, I don't want you to fight alone. You shouldn't fight at all, Dane replied. Jari placed a hand on his arm. I've been running my whole life. I won't run again. Dane looked at her. For the first time, truly. And in that moment, without speaking another word, they understood each other. Two people broken by war, healed by each other. The morning was too quiet. No birds. No wind. No machines buzzing in the hills. Jari felt it first. A strange stillness in the air. Like the world was holding its breath. Inside the cabin, she stirred the food slowly, watching Nico hum as he played. On the floor, his toy was a broken scanner Dane had given him, and he pretended it was a spaceship. Captain Nico, ready to fly. The boy said, giggling. Jari smiled, but her heart was heavy. Dane had gone out early. Said he was checking the western boundary. He had looked tense, focused. The night before, the scout had returned. Dane didn't say it out loud, but Jari knew they were being watched. Again, a sharp knock hit the door. Jari froze. One knock. Then silence. Not Dane's pattern. She picked up Nico quickly and stepped back. Another knock. Harder. Ari slowly moved to the wall, reached behind the shelf, and pressed a hidden button. The panic hatch opened behind the food storage crate. She whispered, "Hide, my heart. Don't make a sound." Nico didn't argue. He had practiced this with her. His little legs crawled into the space, eyes wide. She closed the panel softly, then she turned to face the door. "Who is it?" She called out. No answer. Her fingers wrapped around the small shock weapon Dane had given her. The door burst open. A tall man stepped in, armor dark, face covered with a mask that lit up red across the eyes. Behind him, two more, guns in hand. Jari stepped back slowly. "Don't fight," one of them said. "We're not here for you." "Then what do you want?" she asked, voice shaking. They didn't answer. Instead, they scanned the room. "No child here," one said. "He must be hidden." Jari's heart stopped. She stepped in front of the food crate. The leader aimed his weapon. "Move. I won't let you take him," the man sighed. "Wrong answer." He raised his gun, and something exploded behind them. A flash of smoke and light. Dane crashed through the back wall, shoulder first, knocking one of the guards down. Before the others could react, he slammed the leader into the table, breaking it in half. Jari grabbed the fallen gun and fired. The second man screamed and dropped his weapon as electricity surged through him. Smoke filled the cabin. Dane shouted, "Get Nico!" "Go to the ravine." Jari opened the panel. Nico ran into her arms. They didn't wait. Outside, the desert wind had returned. Harsh and fast, Jari ran. Behind her, shots rang out. Dane shouted orders. She reached the rocky ravine Dane had shown her days ago, a narrow path between two cliffs. She slid down the side with Nico clinging to her chest. They hid under a ledge. The boy was crying now. Quietly, "Mama," he whispered. "Will they take me again?" "No," she said, pressing her forehead to his. "No one will ever take you again." Above, footsteps rushed by. She held her breath, then silence. Too long, too still. She waited. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Then Dane appeared at the top of the ravine, bleeding from his arm, but walking fast. Jari stood. "Are you hurt?" "I've had worse," he said. "Are you two okay?" "Yes," she said, clutching Nico. "But why did they come now? Why so suddenly?" Dane sat down beside them. "Because someone sold your location," he said quietly. "One of the traders I met last week, he recognized you." Jari's eyes darkened. "I should have known. I shouldn't have gone into town." "No," Dane said firmly. "This is not your fault. You shouldn't have to hide. But we do." Back at the cabin, the place was ruined. Broken walls. Burned food. Blood on the floor. Jari stood in the doorway, silent. Nico ran to his corner. Searching for his toy ship. It was gone. His face fell. Dane walked in and looked around. "We can't stay here anymore." Jari turned to him. "Where will we go?" "I have a backup shelter. Old bunker, buried under a hill. Not far." She nodded. Then she saw Dane wince. "You're hurt," she said again, this time more serious. He sat down, and she knelt beside him. As she cleaned his wounds, he said softly, "They were after him. Not you, not even me." Jari stopped. "What do you mean?" "They called him valuable, special. Wanted to take him to an off-world buyer." Her blood ran cold. "My son is not for sale," she whispered. Dane looked her in the eyes. "He never will be. Not while I'm alive." That night, as they prepared to leave the cabin forever, Nico clung to Jari's side. "Will we find a new home?" he asked. Jari hesitated. Then she looked at Dane. He was already loading gear into the skimmer. "Yes," she told her son. "We already have one. It's not a place, it's a person." Nico blinked. "You mean him?" She smiled, soft and tired. "Yes, my heart, him." And under the stars, chased by hunters, scarred by the past, they left behind the ruins. But they carried something stronger than fear now. A promise. And promises, when held by a man like Dane, could become a shield stronger than any weapon. A week passed. They were safe for now, hidden inside a forgotten bunker beneath a dried-out hill. Jari sat by the dim light of a solar lamp, watching Nico sleep on a bed of blankets and warm jackets. Dane had patched up the placehold war tech, sealed doors, air filters still working. It wasn't a home, but it was shelter. Still, Jari couldn't sleep. She stared at the metal walls, her heart heavy. They kept running, even now after all. Dane had done. The system still hunted her child. The law didn't protect people like them. Only one man did. Early morning, Dane checked the comms device again. Nothing good. "They issued a bounty," he said. Jari looked up. "On you?" "On all of us. But especially me for harboring a fugitive alien." He didn't look scared. Just tired. Jari's eyes narrowed. "They want to make an example." Dane nodded. "And they're not hiding it anymore." That day, Dane made a choice. He stood in front of a small terminal, an old colony broadcast relay that still worked on local frequencies. Jari stood beside him. "What are you doing?" "I'm not hiding anymore," he said. "If they want to drag us into the light, then I'll show the whole colony the truth." He turned on the camera. The signal went live. Every public screen, every terminal in the colony markets, every home in range suddenly flickered. And there, in the middle of the day, appeared a weathered man in a dusty coat, standing in front of a child and a pale blue-skinned alien woman. Dane. He looked straight into the lens and spoke. "My name is Dane. Some of you know me. Some think I died in the ashlands after the war. Others wish I had. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to tell the truth." He stepped aside, and Jari came into full view holding her son. This woman, Jari, is not a threat. She's a mother. Her son is not a weapon. He's a child. The camera zoomed in on Nico's face, his sleepy eyes, his half-human, half-alien features. They've hunted this boy because he's different. Because he's valuable. Because someone out there believes you can buy a life. Dane's voice grew colder. Well, not this one. He looked into the lens like he was looking into every eye that had turned away. I fought in your wars. I bled for this colony, and now I see it clearer than ever. The enemy is not out there in space. It's here in the fear, the silence, the cold rules that protect power over people. He stepped closer to the camera. You can come for me. But if you come for this child again, you'll face me first. And then, he ended the signal. Across the colony, silence followed. Then whispers, then outrage. Back at the bunker, Jari stared at him. That was suicide, Dane shrugged. It was the truth. You just told the whole planet where we are. I told them who we are. That night, heavy boots landed outside the bunker. Jari woke instantly. Dane already had his gun in hand, but this time, it wasn't SLAVERS. It was citizens, miners, engineers, traders, a few hybrid children hiding behind coats. One old woman held up a cracked terminal screen. Dane's speech still paused on it. The crowd didn't come to arrest. They came to stand. We saw the message. One man said, "We're with you," said another. A third stepped forward and handed Jari a food bag. "For the boy." Dane lowered his weapon slowly. Jari blinked. "Why now?" The old woman smiled. "Because you reminded us we still have hearts." But not everyone was pleased. The colony leaders sent an official unit the next day. Dressed in black, faces covered. They stood outside the bunker gates. "You're harboring an undocumented hybrid," the officer barked. "That violates planetary law." Dane walked out, rifle slung across his back. "And you're violating something greater," he said. "Mercy." Jari stepped out beside him. "You want to take me?" She said loudly, "Then take me. Leave. My son, let him live." The crowd behind them grew larger. A murmur spread, then a shout, "Let the boy live." Another, "They did nothing wrong." The officer looked around. He was outnumbered. Outvoiced. He gave one last glare and said, "This isn't over." "No," Dane replied. "It's just beginning." That night, Jari stood on the hill with Dane, looking down at the campfires. People had chosen to stay, protect, watch. "They believe in you now," she said. "They believe in what's right." He replied. She looked at him, eyes soft. "You risked everything." He smiled slightly. "I didn't have much left to lose." She reached out and took his hand. "No," she whispered. "You still have us." The fires burned gently under the twin moons, not fires of war, not fires of destruction, fires of warmth, of food, of stories shared by strangers. All around the bunker, families had pitched tents. Former slaves, half-aliens, castaways, even a few humans who once turned their backs, now standing to guard the very people they ignored. And at the center of it all stood Dane, Jari, and her son Nico, not fugitives anymore, not alone anymore, not running anymore. The next morning, Nico ran barefoot through the soft sand. Laughing. He stopped by a group of children and held out his toy ship. One Dan had repaired with careful hands. "Want to play space rescue?" he asked. The other children nodded. Different skin, different shapes, different blood. But none of it mattered. They laughed the same. Jari watched from a distance, her eyes soft. Her hands were busy hammering a metal beam into the ground. Dane stood beside her, lifting wooden panels. "What are we calling this place?" he asked. She looked up at him smiling. A new home. He raised an eyebrow. That's it, she shrugged. Simple, strong, like you, he chuckled. I was thinking something poetic. You don't look like a poetic man. Fair, he said. But you're building more than a shelter here, you know. I know, she whispered. I'm building a life. The house took shape slowly, piece by piece. Beam by beam, volunteers came. A few donated old furniture. One miner brought a solar water unit. A hybrid girl painted flowers on the wall. Jari worked harder than anyone. She cooked for the builders. She taught the refugee children to read. And at night, when the stars came out, she told stories from her world. One evening, a child asked, Miss Jari, what's the strongest thing in the galaxy? Everyone expected her to say a weapon or a soldier. But she answered, a mother who won't give up. As the days passed, something new grew inside Dane 2.P. The kind he never thought he'd find again. Each time, Nico ran to him with a drawing. Each time Jari touched his shoulder and said thank you. Each time the people looked to him not as a soldier, but as a protector. He felt it. This was what life was supposed to feel like. One afternoon, as the wind carried the smell of fresh bread and clean air, Nico asked a question. Dane? Yes, kid? If you're not my real dad, can I still call you dad? Dane froze. Jari, who was nearby, turned slowly. Dane crouched down in front of the boy. You can. Call me anything you want, he said. But I promise this. He placed a hand on Nico's small chest. I'll protect this heart as if it were my own. Nico smiled, then hugged him tight. That night, Jari and Dane stood on the roof of their half-built home, looking up. At the stars, she whispered. We're not who we were when we met. No, Dane said. You were half-starved and ready to die for your son. And you? She asked. I was already dead inside, he said simply. But you brought me back. She touched his hand gently. We were broken. But now, Dane said, we're whole together. Soon, the colony council sent another message. Not a warning, an offer, an apology. They said, help us build better rules, better homes, a better future for everyone. Jari read the message out loud, then looked at Dane. You think they mean it? No, he said, but we'll make them mean it. A year later, a small village stood where the bunker once was. Children ran free. Families rebuilt lives. Humans and aliens worked side by side. At the heart of it stood a home with painted flowers and open doors. Inside, Nico read aloud from a book. Jari prepared dinner while humming an old song from her world, and Dane sat by the window, smiling. At the sound of laughter and life, they weren't rich. They weren't powerful, but they were finally safe, finally together, finally a family.